Hello, I'm Daniel Weiss, your host, and you are listening to my podcast where my guests and I focus on topics of nutrition, active lifestyle for health and performance. No fat, guaranteed. If you are new to this podcast, I hope you will enjoy it, and if you are a returning listener, visitor, please make sure to rate the podcast on Stitcher or iTunes, as it will help me to grow our community and get interesting guests and introduce interesting topics in future episodes. You are also welcome to join my Facebook group, which is linked in the show notes.
Today's episode of the podcast we have an amazing guest, Nancy Clark, who is an internationally respected sports nutritionist. You are a weight coach, nutrition author, and registered dietitian specializing in nutrition for exercise, health, and management of eating disorders, which is very interesting. And you have a private private practice in the Boston area, and you offer nutrition consultation for both casual exercisers as well as competitive athletes. And actually, the first time I came across you was your book that's like Nancy Clark's Sport Nutrition Guidebook, and you have already 5 editions besides all the other books. So I'm very happy that you managed to come here today and join me for this episode.
Well, thank you for the invitation.
Yeah, so can you tell us maybe a little bit more about you, how you got into all these dietetics and nutrition stuff, sports nutrition, and have you managed to actually create 5 editions of that book?
Well, I'm actually working on the 6th edition, so
what's going to be new?
Yeah, so it's just doing it. You just do it. So I got into sports nutrition out of personal interest. I've always loved hiking and biking and cross-country skiing and mountain climbing and running and, just an outdoor active life, and sort of combined my interest in nutrition with that of trying to figure out how I could, be a faster biker or runner, or and just how I could help other people. So it was just an area out of personal interest, and was able to make it into a profession.
That's amazing. So what's coming next in the next edition of your book?
Well, what's coming next? It's interesting when you revise a book every 5 years. It's really interesting to see what changes, and you think, it's the same old, but it's not really. I mean, there's been too much emphasis on sugar is evil, white flour is worthless, and people needing to eat clean and no wrappers, and cookies are poison, and there's such a negative atmosphere toward food these days. So the new book is putting into perspective, how much sugar is okay, and do you have to eat a perfect diet to have an excellent diet? So it's like people have almost gotten too healthy, and they're afraid to eat, So I'm just trying to put the fun back into food.
Oh, that's amazing, because I really think that this is something that's very practical and very important nowadays. Like you mentioned, that there are too many restrictions being put and too much stress and emphasis on what not to eat rather than what to eat. And it actually led also to the next question that I had, was what's new in the world of the sports nutrition or nutrition in general? Like, what's the general direction? And if we are moving forward into some kind of new exciting stuff, or is it some of the old research or old hypotheses and knowledge that is being supported by new research?
I think what's happening is that we're better understanding why certain things work. Like people have always, carbo loaded for a marathon, but now we are more fully aware of the mechanics behind that and the training that's best for that, and the when should you eat carbs and when should you not. For the very high level athletes, what's new is really looking at training depleted from time to time as always being fully fed. Forever there's a lot of interest in recovery and protein and just how to optimize everything. So I think the basics are pretty much the same, but there's a little bit of tweaking that's going on. Athletes have been great athletes for years. So, we've been doing something right. And now it's just trying to fine tune that, which comes with, I think, a better understanding of the science of, exercise and how it impacts on the physiology of the body.
Oh, that's amazing. And you actually sparked my interest with when you mentioned like when it's good to eat carbohydrates, when it's not optimal, let's say, and when it's also maybe better to train not carb loaded, when to carb load. So can we speak a little bit more about that? Because it's been also a topic in my previous podcast episodes with other people, like namely Bob Seebohar. And he was a proponent of nutrition periodization when, for example, endurance athlete would eat more like fat or higher fat percentage during their off season to prime their body to burn or oxidize more fat during their workouts.
There's a lot of interest in how to use fat more as a primary fuel than as a secondary fuel. I really look at who my audience is when I talk about periodization and changing diets and training low and all the current lingo that goes with the periodization. I mean, if the bottom line is the E in exercise should be for enjoyment. And so much of my population that I reach out to and that follows me are recreational exercisers. And, they aren't Olympians. Do they need to jump through all those hoops and make nutrition all that confusing? I mean, some want to, some don't. So my job is really to have one-on-one conversations with people to figure out what their goals are, how much they want to fiddle with their nutrition, and look at quality of life in the whole picture. So, as I say, for most of my people, I want them to enjoy their exercise because they should be exercising for health and fitness, feeling good, diabetes, heart disease, and it's not just performance. So for the athletes that are exercising for, health and fitness and stress relief, and sure, they want to be the best they can, do you really need to make it confusing and training low and, eating, no carbs at night and then training low the next morning and, trying to periodize all this stuff. So, there's that approach for the average fitness exerciser, recreational athlete. And then you have the more serious ones that really are highly competitive and maybe their career depends on this. And they might like a more complex approach to it all. And, lots of times some of this stuff just happens naturally. A lot of highly competitive athletes, oftentimes they skip meals. They end up doing double workouts and haven't had time to eat after their first workout and train empty for the second workout. So sometimes it just happens. And now we happen to have a plan to see that it might offer them some benefits that they've appreciated in the past without knowing what they were doing.
Mm-hmm. Because I noticed that it's actually more like these amateur athletes who spend a lot of time of training, and it's very important for them. These are the athletes who are very interested in this stuff.
Okay, and what was your question?
Well, so basically, these people are very interested in this, like training low and nutrition periodization. So, as you started mentioning, there are some benefits with it that elite athletes or these elite exercisers are or have been reaping without even knowing it. So, can we talk more specifically about what these benefits are? What seems to be the benefit of training low and how to actually use it?
Well, I think that Bob Seebehor is really he's the one that sort of started all of this. So I suspect that his podcast goes into it pretty specifically. When you train low, depleted of glycogen, there are certain metabolic adaptations that take place. And so the body is able to, just mentally, the athlete knows that, I can train depleted. So, how much of this is mental is a good question right there. So the psychological impact of it, but physiologically, there seems to be, a benefit in terms of, optimizing performance. So again, it's, the recreational athlete, I often talk to these people that they come into my office and they're just trying to do everything right, but just genetically, they might not be gifted to get to the Olympics. But again, they want to, be the best that they can be, and I don't want to deny that of them. But sometimes it's just doing simple things like, eating breakfast, getting enough sleep, losing a few pounds, eating more quality food. So it's the whole picture in terms of performance, and sleep deprivation is a very big part of that picture. So we kind of have to triage what's the most important thing to focus on. And, there's a lot of more important things that need to be put into place before, I start talking about periodization with my clients.
Right.
And like I say, sleep is one.
Okay, I'm very happy that you mentioned this because this is also a very often repeated pattern that people, like you mentioned, people focus on this very specific stuff like nutrition periodization, and they don't handle the basics very well, like sleeping and stress management and just eating enough and so on. So what are these basics besides sleeping?
Well, the basics are, one, sleeping. As you said, stress management. I look at just the quality of their diet. Do they eat overall, good quality calories, or are they skipping meals? Are they just grabbing foods haphazardly? Are they putting, quality nutrition into their body to keep it healthy? Are they, doing strengthening exercises if they're runners, to help prevent injuries? And so it's looking at all that goes into performance, and performance is based on fueling, but also other factors as well.
Yes. So what are some of the typical problems that people actually come to your office with? They want to improve their performance.
Well, the most common thing is, if I lose 10 pounds, I'll be lighter and then I'll be faster. And, lots of times the answer to that is no. If you just fuel better, you'll be faster. And they just think that you know, by shedding some fat, that their performance will improve. And oftentimes they just need to eat better. They're so busy staying away from food in their efforts to lose weight that they aren't fueling up and refueling. And, they just aren't surrounding their workouts with the fuel that it needs to be able to train hard.
Yeah.
So it's having them get the basics down of good nutrition and worrying less about weight and focusing more on fueling. I mean, it's amazing how much a difference, how much faster a well-fueled body can run. And people underappreciate and undervalue the power of being well-fueled.
Mm-hmm. And now you were speaking about, I would say, or I suppose, relatively lean people, right? Lean athletes.
Yeah, but even people that you might look at and think, maybe they could lose 5 pounds, but maybe they can't. Maybe they're already genetically lean, and that they're lean compared to other people in their genetic family. We don't know what a person's optimal weight is. It's not a percentage body fat. It's not a number on the scale. It really is hard to define the perfect weight for a person. So everyone thinks, I have fat to lose. If I just lose this, I'll be faster. And very often they're wrong. If they're just
I actually like how Matt Fitzgerald, he has this book, Racing Weight, and he defines the optimal weight to be like the best ratio in between your weight and your performance. So basically you track your performance relative to your body weight, and eventually you will find that your best performance is at that body weight and, let's say, body fat percentage.
Well, my answer to that is so many people in the running community and in the sports community have eating disorders. And a person with an eating disorder can do well for a season, maybe 2 seasons, and be really thin and really fast and have a great, weight to power ratio. But then they start falling apart. If they're under eating in order to maintain a certain weight, they start getting stress fractures, injuries, and, oftentimes have, performances that just start getting worse and worse. So there's not a one formula that fits everybody, but really, these kinds of conversations are really one-on-one and looking at a person's genetics and looking at their weight history and looking at their relationship with food. And there are athletes that, eat and train, and there are others that diet and exercise. And those are 2 different conversations. So
yeah, I love how you put it now.
Excuse me?
I love how you said it, how you mentioned it, like there are 2 different types of people, those who eat and train and those who diet and exercise, and this is a very profound thought, I think, idea here.
They're very different conversations. And unfortunately, 30 to 60% of female athletes struggle with food and weight. The percentage among men is probably less, but yet it is still there. And male athletes do have eating disorders that sort of slide under the radar. And, the same people that, are really pleased to, I'm best, run best when I'm lightest. In a year or 2, oftentimes they don't say that same thing. And their quality of life, what's the cost of maintaining this very lean weight? So it's I take a holistic approach to sports nutrition and not just focusing on weight, but quality of life. I'm not hearing you, Dan.
Yes.
Okay.
I definitely seen people who actually gain weight and improve their performance, running performance. And for example, Gwen Jorgensen was one of these people. But I really like that you introduced also this topic of being undernourished, undereating, and it seems to be like a big problem, especially amongst women and teenage women.
Excuse me.
And how do you actually handle these cases? People who have problems with or challenges with eating enough when it comes to supporting their exercise?
Well, it's a challenge, because they see food as being fattening, and they try very hard to not eat. And the goal is to address their fears. Do you really think eating a banana before you do your run will make you fat, will hurt your performance? And have them experiment and be curious. If they were to eat better, would they perform better? So the goal is to just be curious and have them experiment. And they might just learn that they do better when they're better fueled. But this is a process, because the people with disordered eating, are just very, very anxious about food and weight and their training. And, the problem isn't food or weight or training. The problem is anxiety. And they really need to learn how to manage the anxiety. And then their life will become a little bit easier.
Yeah, so specifically it's more like a mental problem on this side.
Well,
how about people?
Yeah, I mean, if they have an outright eating disorder, an eating disorder is a psychological diagnosis. It's not a nutritional diagnosis. Yeah.
So I was asking, like, when it comes to, for example, to endurance athletes, who have a very high energy demands and they just cannot or undereat without actually knowing it or without trying to. So it's not like eating disorder from the mental perspective. What are some of the strategies for them to implement? Should they start tracking calories or focus on some maybe more fatty foods, or how would you approach that?
Well, if they're responsible enough to train hard, they need to be responsible enough to fuel wisely. And that could mean working with a sports dietitian. And there's a global organization called PINES, PINES, which stands for Professionals in Nutrition for Exercise and Sport. So pinesnutrition.org is the website. And so that there are a lot of sports dietitians around the globe, and to find one who can work with you to help you figure out how to get the calories that you need to support your active lifestyle. And, I've worked with people and made it simple. So, they don't need to track calories, because that doesn't really, the less you eat, the more your body hibernates. And the more you exercise, the more your body hibernates. So, I mean, how do you know how much your body really requires? Your body is your best calorie counter. Little kids do not count calories. They eat when they're hungry, they stop when they're content, and they get what they need. And, the same holds true for athletes who can, if they stay mindful and listen to their body, they will, get the appropriate cues. But working with a sports nutrition professional can get them, help them understand when to eat, how much to eat, more or less, how they can manage it, and help them with this process of being responsible with their food, so that sometimes people undereat. Like I have clients who do a lot of exercise that are eating very little, but they aren't losing weight. Their body is just conserving energy, and all this time their bones are getting weaker, their hormones are reduced, and they end up in an energy deficit that comes back to haunt them.
Yeah, so basically it's like some process that you don't feel, maybe they don't even feel tired, or they can exercise, and it just accumulates over time, and then some things happen.
Yes. Yeah. And just chronic fatigue, not recovering as well, maybe not sleeping very well, occasionally maybe binging on food, having cold hands, cold feet. They're all signs of undereating. And among women, they will lose their menstrual cycle because the body's not getting enough energy to menstruate. Yeah. Men also have changes in testosterone that can have an impact. So undereating is a big problem. And the myth, the thinner I am, the lighter I am, the better I'll be, gets people into trouble.
Definitely. I'm really happy that we are mentioning this. Actually, I wanted this podcast to be focused more on these like eating disorders or disordered eating, and even without asking, we somehow got into it, so I'm very happy. And we actually also presented some specifics how to handle it. And I really loved also how you mentioned that our bodies are the best calorie calculators. We just need to get back in tune with our bodies, and that babies don't count calories or anything, right? When they are hungry, they start crying, they eat, and when they are full, they stop eating. And it's so simple, and we start to make it so hard with all these calorie counting and different food approaches. Actually, why do you think that is? That nowadays, when you open the internet, all you can see is like calorie counting, ketogenic diet, I don't know what kind of diet, and different approaches to weight loss, instead of all the good listening to your body, getting into tune with your body, and focusing on whole food.
Well, there's a lot more money to be made in selling a popular diet book. And people are more likely to listen to you if you have something new and different to say, something like, wow, eat lots of fat. So it's just, it's interesting. There's a lot of business that's involved in the fitness. I mean, there's the whole fitness industry. There's a whole sports supplement industry that is looking to make money. And so if they make things very complex, you can go on you can be a keto athlete and buy all of your food, from certain vendors that will provide you with a ketogenic diet.
Yeah.
So a lot of it is people making money. And I had one client who said, I mean, I like foods with wrappers because it tells me exactly what's in it. And then I don't have to guess if I'm getting a 3-to-1 ratio of carbs to protein. And so there's, people are just reading the internet that might have lots of information about the science that's getting released, and making nutrition into a far more exact science than it needs to be. When researchers do studies on protein, they just choose a certain protein level, and then they write their paper based on that, and everyone thinks, oh, that's what I'm supposed to have. That's what works with my body. But who knows? It's just sort of fascinating. There's too much information around, and people, like I say, people are making it a lot more complex than it needs to be.
Yeah, definitely. So when we are in the diet phase and the sports supplements, is there some new sports supplements coming out that seem to be interesting?
Some people are looking at the collagen as a means to enhance recovery or to prevent, tendon tears, ligament tears. So that's sort of interesting. It needs to be proven. I think the supplements that are proven are, caffeine is known to work. Creatine is known to work, beta-alanine. So that, there are supplements that are known to work and that have the science to support it, and others that are glimmer of hope, and there'll always be lots of glimmer of hope, But
like for example, like nitrates from beetroot juice.
Well, I think that has been well researched and well, pretty well documented. But why is it that elite athletes don't respond to beets the same way as recreational athletes? Is it because their bodies are more highly trained? Is it because they eat more food and more nitrates in their diet? So that is the tweaking that needs to get figured out. But, people are making money in that beetroot business, believe me.
Yeah, definitely, because also recently I was listening to some podcast episode and they were mentioning exactly the beetroot supplements, and the conclusion was that, yeah, it works for some people. It doesn't necessarily work for everybody, and also that the dose is dependent on individual, and it will also depend from the point that timing of the nutrients, right? For somebody it may be like 30 minutes before exercise, for some other person 60 minutes before exercise, and that's a whole kind of story that you need to figure out for yourself or with your coach.
Precisely. Yeah. Each person is very individual. I mean, just look at caffeine. I mean, if I have a teaspoon of coffee in the morning, I'm set for the day. My husband drinks coffee all day and has some before bed and doesn't faze him at all. And that's just caffeine. Some people are very sensitive to sugar. Some people are sensitive to alcohol. And so we're also metabolically different. And when people get, really obsessive compulsive about their diet, I mean, it's like, how do you know if this is appropriate for you and your body? So again, it's trying to get people to be more in touch with what the body is telling them, and appreciating each person's unique response. And as you said, with the ergogenic aids, generally a third of the people have a good response, a third of the people a fair response, a third of the people no response. And studies can be done, and who do you happen to have for subjects? I mean, you get lots of different results, differing results that just get totally confusing.
Yeah, definitely. And when we are speaking about this also from the perspective of the diet, what's your position on, or what's your experience with athletes who are vegetarian or even vegan? Like, because there are some specific challenges with them, they might be have problems with intaking enough energy because the foods are usually not as calorie dense?
Yeah, it's important first to ask, why are you choosing a vegetarian or vegan diet? To understand what their reason is, and to help them to be responsible as a vegetarian or a vegan. I mean, for someone with an eating disorder, well, I don't eat red meat, so I got that out of my diet. Oh, I'm lactose intolerant. Oh, don't do dairy. Oh, I'm gluten free. And oh, I want to save the earth and I love animals, so I'm just going to knock off, all animal products. And so there'll be a vegan living on apples and lettuce leaves. And certainly that's not going to support their performance. So there are others that, do an excellent job of having a plant-based diet, and they're able to get the calcium they need and the protein and all the nutrients in a balanced vegetarian and vegan diet. So it just depends on the reasoning and just understanding what a person's goals are with a diet. Many people become vegetarian. I have clients that, I'm vegetarian to help me lose weight. Well, protein happens to be very satiating, and when they knock off the chicken and the fish, they end up eating more dark chocolate, and they don't lose weight. So again, it's a one-on-one conversation. But certainly there is a trend. Some people think they'll save the environment, if they stop eating animal protein. And yes, it might contribute a little bit, but the biggest way to save the environment is to stop wasting food. About 40% of the food that we generate in America just gets wasted. And it costs a lot of energy to produce that food and to transport it and keep it in the refrigerator until it rots, and then it fills up the landfills. And so to save the planet, I teach my clients to focus in on proper planning so that they don't have much food that they waste. And you can eat some animal protein and not feel guilty about it at all.
Yeah, like you said, it's like a personal or very personal thing, and when it comes to vegan diets, it can be based on the reason very ideologically based, and well, some people mask their eating disorders, like you mentioned in the beginning, by saying like, yeah, I'm vegan, but actually they are just masking their eating disorder. But for those who are not masking, for, let's say, are vegan for ethical reasons or for any other reason, and they are responsible, basically the statement is that they can very well fill all the nutritional needs and everything they need. Is that correct?
Correct. Yeah. No, there's nothing wrong with being a vegan athlete as long as you have a balanced vegan diet. And people might want to work with a sports dietitian to make sure that they're getting what they need. How many grams of protein does their body need? How much are they consuming through their diets? Where are they getting their calcium? Where are they getting the B12? And just having a nutrition checkup. And, then they can get, assured that what they're doing, how they're fueling the body, is optimal. And, they can perform fine. It's not a problem. I see more problems among the weight conscious runners and athletes who are trying to skimp. And when you're eating plant protein, you need to eat a lot of hummus. And if you're on a diet, you might eat not so much hummus. So it's just making sure that they're able to take care of their nutrient needs.
Perfect. And basically, these are all the things that I wanted to mention in this podcast. I'm very happy with how it turned out. But just before we finish, I have a few more questions. That is like, what's your favorite food and what's your favorite cuisine?
What's my favorite food? Oh, I have lots of favorite foods. I think peanut butter is pretty high up there. It's quick, it's easy, it's healthy, it's satisfying, it's anti-inflammatory. I just, slam together peanut butter banana sandwiches, peanut butter honey sandwiches, and lunch one. I have 2 lunches a day. Peanut butter sandwich 1, peanut butter sandwich 2. And it just makes me happy. So peanut butter's there. A favorite cuisine? I like a lot of different cuisines. I must say I was lucky enough to have a trip that took me to India last year. And I just fell in love with the Indian food. So that surprised me. I thought I was going to starve, but I didn't. I was very, very happy, and have missed it since I've come back to the States. I love Asian food. I love French food. I love American food. So I just love variety. So I don't have favorites. I just, I'll eat whatever's put in front of me for the most part.
Yeah, most definitely. And that brought me actually to the question, like, what's your position on oils? Like using oils in cooking?
I think that it's good to have a certain amount of healthy fat in each meal. We've gone the fat-free route and found that people just aren't satiated because a fat-free diet just kind of leaves you hungry. And you want some fat in each meal to help absorb certain vitamins, and it makes the food taste better. So how much fat really depends on how many calories that you have to spend. So someone who's burning 3,000, 4,000 calories a day will probably have a little bit more fat in their diet than the person who's having 1,500, 2,000 calories. But
let's speak specifically more about oils, as it's like oil is just fat, right? I mean, if there is like extra virgin olive oil, it has also some vitamins, minerals, but when we have like sunflower oil or palm oil, they are usually very processed sources of fat, and the general consensus is that we should avoid them.
The dose is the poison, as with anything. So excess anything is a problem. But I think your extra virgin olive oil certainly has a lot of history of being health protective. Coconut oil, on the other hand, is questionable. It's a saturated fat, and people think it is healthy. The American Heart Association has yet to deem it as a acceptable fat for a heart healthy diet. With any food, it's not a good food, a bad food. There's a balanced diet and an unbalanced diet. So you can take a bad food and balance it into, a healthy diet. And that's what my message is, to look at the whole picture and not just oil, sugar, salt, fat, but look at, breakfast, lunch, dinner, snack, and how does everything balance out?
Yeah. So looking at the big picture instead of demonizing any specific foods or certain foods.
Yeah, and that's what I focused on in my sports nutrition guidebook. It's just really the how-tos of how do you eat well when you're eating on the run, when you're not cooking, when you'd rather spend your time training than in the kitchen. And it goes into breakfast and lunch and snacks and dinner and snack attacks and fueling up and recovery foods and how much protein you need and how to get the nutrients that you need without supplements and without spending a lot of money on special sports foods and things. So it's been very helpful to a lot of people because it sort of, takes away the confusion. There's just a lot of confusion these days.
Yeah, most definitely. So, if there is a person who wants to connect with you or maybe get a personal advice from you, or how can they connect with you?
It's easy. You can go to my website, which is nancyclarkrd.com. So that's NANCYCLARKRD, as in registered dietitian. nancyclarkrd.com. And there's a place called Contact Nancy. So you just click on that link and send me an email.
So that's the best way how people can reach with you. Okay.
Yeah.
I will also put it in the link in the show notes, so people have easy access to that. Are you maybe, so besides the book that you are working on, actually the 6th edition, is there any other projects you are working on right now, or maybe have some, I don't know, speech?
Well,
or
I have an online workshop that I do with an exercise physiologist, with John Ivey, and that has been very popular with a lot of athletes as well as health professionals. It really, John presents, he's an exercise physiologist who presents the science, and I look at the practical aspects of fueling for performance. So you can find information about that on my website as well.
Okay, perfect. So thank you, Nancy, once again for finding the time for us and for sharing all your knowledge.
Well, thank you. Thank you for inviting me.
I'm very pleased, and hope to see you next time.
Okay.
Hey guys, I hope you enjoyed the episode and see you next time. If you liked it, please share, subscribe, and you will find all the important links in the show notes of the video, however you got to this. So there will be also a page to subscribe, my Facebook page, my website, and if you are looking for a coach or coaching experience, you are looking to boost your performance, whether it's mental or physical, to the next level, then go to my website that is linked down below and contact me through there.